Korea, Japan, Italy, and China will suffer devastating population declines in the next 50 or 60 years because their native populations are not having enough children. And now we have a great irony, which is that these are societies that are on the far end of hostility to immigration. And they will socially and economically collapse without massive, rapid immigration.
And I think we need to have a much more honest debate about migration, and one in which we do not position other people as racist if they want to talk about it. We actually have to be able to do that in a brave and respectful way, as I think we're modeling today.
There are some elements here which the far right build on. One is, can white people express pride in their group or mobilize
What group is that exactly?
As white, so black identity, white identity, etc.
We'll
just a second.
If we give Eric just a minute to.
So I'm saying there are
He's
some.
introducing contested terms which I don't even understand.
Okay.
What is white identity?
Okay. I think that the rise of populism and polarization is forcing us to recognize that what David Goodhart calls the anywhere vision, that everybody should be a cosmopolitan, who should just be celebrating their own individual achievements. I don't think that model is going to work for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have the successful portable credentials, careers that can drive their identity stories. They are attached to community, national, religious, ethnic, etc. And that includes majority populations, white majorities, for example, particularly those who are not, don't have the social mobility. I do think so. Many on the left would be in favor of this idea, well, we need to give them opportunities in economic redistribution, but culturally they are uncomfortable with the idea of such people, for example, being rooted in place and to a particular tradition of national identity, not wanting rapid ethnic transformation, wanting slower transformation to allow assimilation. And this is where really, if we want to understand populism, I've got a book called White Shift, which is all about this. There is no better variable than your views on immigration for explaining support for the populist right. That is the central question. Without that question, you have no populism in the right-wing populism. So I think this is a key for thinking about the future. We're going to have to slow down on the social change.
Let me follow up on this then. Thinking about how our current trajectory is flawed, it seems there that you're suggesting something along the lines of having, say, immigration policies based on people's cultures and likelihood to assimilate into the countries. So if we have loads of people from different cultures, radically different cultures, coming to England, for example, we're going to have unrest from, like you say, from the right or something like this. So what's the solution there?
Well, I think it's not necessarily about what type of immigrant it is. I mean, there's the pace of change. I think the key question is volume, right? Which has, I don't think, been addressed by mainstream parties. It's the pace of change. And the way our discussion around immigration has been conducted is you're either a open person, which is really good, or you're a closed person, which is you're a nasty bigot. Instead of that black-white kind of view of the world, I prefer sort of shades of gray, like you're a faster or a slower person. Like we agree that zero and purity is terrible. Many people, or very few people would be open borders. Surely we can have a debate about speed.
Yeah.
And if it's about slowing down, if most people want to slow it down, I think mainstream politicians should deliver slower.
So it's no issue with the end there. Like if the UK ended up being majority non-Christian or majority non-white, you wouldn't have any issues with it doing that?
Well, look, if the population had enough time to adjust over a long enough period of time, that's one thing. I would say that, however, the speed of that change, and I also think there's an argument around assimilation that, not integration, but I'm talking about intermarriage, identity change. That's a sort of three-generational. If we look at the US case, the immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe that arrived around, early 1900s, it took about 3 generations for them to, marry across the Catholic, Jewish, Protestant line, move out of ethnic neighborhoods, form a new melted group. That took 3-4 generations. So this process takes a while, and I think we should respect that and slow it down. And once we get the melting, then we can, if you want to accelerate at that point, fine. But I think right now is a time we need to be slowing that down. And without recognition at the elite level that this is an issue,
Okay.
we're going to get more and more populism.
Okay, let's bring Daniel back in before we jump back over to Thangam. Is this one of the concerns that you have, a cultural one in terms of where we go in the future?
So I think there are two distinct issues here specifically concerning immigration. The first is that the trends in population that I've described as ending and that are already reversing are very, very close to producing massive economic and social crises in the rich nations of the world. Korea, Japan, Italy, and China will suffer devastating population declines in the next 50 or 60 years because their native populations are not having enough children. And this is devastating, among other things, for the social model of these societies, because all these societies pay for old age provision by taxes on the working income of the next generation. And the next generation of native workers is simply not big enough. And now we have a great irony, which is that these are societies that are on the far end of hostility to immigration of all the societies in the world, and they will socially and economically collapse without massive, rapid immigration. That's a demographic and economic fact. And the tension that comes from that is going to be extremely powerful, and it's not clear how to resolve it. So that's the problem that we're facing, is that it's not just that elites are open to immigration now and other populations are not, and there's a moral tension. There's a fundamental economic driver, which means that certain societies that are desperately in need of immigrants are also very hostile to immigrants, and something's got to give. The second point on assimilation and how to think about this, there's a famous torts case that every US American first-year law student learns called Paul's Graph against Long Island Railroad. And it's famous because it has this weird fact pattern in which a firework falls off a train and hits a clock that falls on something else and then injures Mrs. Paul's Graph. That's sort of funny if you like comedic accidents, but it's relevant for our purposes for the following reason. The opinion calls Mrs. Paul's Graph a member of the German race. Because in the early part of the 20th century in the United States, Germans were coded as other and as a separate ethnicity and racial group. And the reason I raise that here is the question, who is different and what counts as a shock to the culture is itself internal to the culture. And that's a reason for optimism. I agree, actually, that it's not a recipe for political success for elites who find populations congenial to ignore non-elite resistance to some of those populations. But it's also the case that non-elite resistance is not fixed in stone, and that what counts as being like you and being unlike you can change relatively quickly, actually, especially when it turns out that economic necessity requires in your own self-interest that you see that the change will come.
Okay, Thangam, do you want to come in here?
I do, because I think we should talk more about immigration, not less. I know very few people on the left who don't think we should have rules. I know extremely few people who don't feel value of the diverse populations that we have. But I do think we need to talk about who defines culture. I mean, you're talking about slowing it down because of cultural assimilation. I would like to know who's going to define that culture and who is in it and out of it. And I am going to use, normally I don't use my family, but I'm going to use my dad as an example. An extremely dark South Indian Tamil who is a Christian, because there's a lot of Christians in South India, who is a classical pianist. He came here to study at the Royal Academy of Music, and his English was exquisite. But he was very dark, and when people looked at him, they would have seen him as other and culturally other. And for most of his career and his life in this country, his life was harder because of that. And because of attitudes about assimilation, when he was probably more assimilated than many, many people who would not be dark, actually you might identify as being. I think there's also a question of misrepresentation and misinterpretation of facts. Most refugees stay in their own country or go to a neighbouring one. The vast majority of Syrian refugees, for example, are either internally displaced persons in Syria or they're in the Lebanon. They don't come here. Most people who do come, as far as the British Isles, tend to come here, not always, because they have some sort of cultural affinity, even a relative, or because they speak English, because they came from a former colony of the British Isles, a colonisation system, an empire system, by the way, which exported millions of people without consent and without cultural integration into the countries in which they lived. I think the elite argument is often deeply unhelpful because we all seem to be very comfortable with saying things like, oh, we want to attract the brightest and the best. I find that problematic. As a person of colour, I find that problematic. As a person of Indian origin, I find it problematic because I think that's basically saying to certain countries, we're actually going to take your very well-educated labour force that you have spent money educating. We're going to take them because we're a bit short of doctors in the NHS at the moment. Just as we did in the 50s when we were short of navvies to build the roads and the railways, and we took working class people from Ireland. We also exploited the fact that they felt that they had no economic future in their own country, something for which we did arguably bear some responsibility. It's complicated, in short. And I think we need to have a much more honest debate about migration, and one in which we do not position other people as racist if they want to talk about it, or as overly liberal if they feel that they've got something to contribute which is different from your view. I think we have to be able to do that in a brave way and not constantly seek for some sort of perfect solution. We actually have to be able to do that in a brave and respectful way, as I think we're modelling today.
Well, I think so as well, but in the public eye, or academics have criticized Eric, for example. I know in your book you speak about the grain of truth in the white genocide narratives, for example, and this has been thrown at you in a number of different contexts, saying that is a racist view to suggest that there is some kind of secret white genocide, some conspiracy of people wanting to get rid of English, British, American culture. Do you want to explain the nuance of that? Because it's quite a provocative thing to say, isn't it? To say that there's a grain of truth to white genocide.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. So let's just unpick this white genocide thing. So there is this idea that there's some conspiracy by Jews. I might object to that for a number of reasons. This kind of conspiracy by Jews to sort of introduce minorities and basically overwhelm white majorities and turn them into minorities until there's none of them left. Okay, so that's obviously a conspiracy theory. But what isn't is, well, there's an ethnic transformation going on. That's not a left-wing position or a right-wing position. That's a well-established demographic position. So, and then there are also commentators like Michael Moore, when whites declined in the U.S. Census, he said this is the greatest moment in American history ever. So there's certainly a celebration by some elements of the left of white decline. And I think that's true as well.
That's not the same as genocide.
No, it's not the same as genocide. So I don't give
really
credence. No, I don't.
It's also a minority view.
Exactly. Well, yes and no. I think that
Yes, it is.
the Browning of America was celebrated, this idea, we're getting more diverse, that's fantastic.
Hang on. The Browning of America?
Yes,
What is that?
That is a left-wing
What is
term.
it? What does it
It is the
mean?
decline of the white majority in the U.S. was what that means.
Says who?
It's not, says, this is mainstream media, this is not me inventing, this is a regular term, you can Google it now. So I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Okay, this is not, the genocide thing is ridiculous, absolutely. So I'm not, look, my point is, there are some elements here which the far right build on. One is, can white people express pride in their group or mobilize
What group is that exactly?
as white? So black identity, white identity, etc.
We'll come to
Just a second.
If we give Eric just a minute to
So I'm saying there are
He's
some.
introducing contested terms which I don't even understand.
Okay.
What is white identity?
Okay.
Ask an Irish person. Ask a Scottish
I'll tell you what.
person.
Just a second. I'll tell you.
answer the question.
So what is white identity?
Yeah.
Very quickly. If we do a survey on a quantitative researchers. Okay. First of all, do you identify as white? Yes or no? Would be one way of measuring that.
Okay.
Do you identify as black, Hispanic, whatever? How important is that identity to you would be a secondary question. So if we take the white identity thing, 45 to 65% of whites in the US, for example, would say that identity is at least somewhat or very important to them. That's lower than black identity, where it'd be in the 80s, Asian, Hispanic in the middle. This is a social group. Now we can talk about, I'm part Chinese, I'm part Hispanic. The meaning of where's the boundary of the white and the non-white is an interesting question. I think it's a group. I think it's sociologically there. It is constructed, of course, over time. But my only point here is when we're talking about white genocide, that's a ridiculous conspiracy theory. But there are sort of elements that the far right can build upon. So, if you're white, you can't express your identity, you can't defend your interests the way other groups can. I think that is unambiguously true. On the other hand, if we talk about something like some group like liberals or the left, the idea that the left are engineering an ethnic transformation is not true.
Yeah.
And that's so we know that Bobby Kennedy, for example, when he argued for the 65 Immigration Act, in fact, he was arguing, look, the ethnic composition is not going to change. This is what the left were saying. They weren't saying we want to transform the country. So that's nonsense. So
but they celebrated the increase of diversity or the increase of different cultures,
Right.
racial groups, etc.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Thangam before I bring Daniel back in, just because of these points that you wanted to heckle Eric with a moment
I
ago.
did. I still didn't hear a definition of white identity. And I think if you ask, you did not give us a definition of what that identity is. You said that people tick a box saying, do you identify as white? That is not the same as having a white identity. That's not the same as having a set of cultural norms and expectations and behaviours. By the way, in this country, one of the things that does seem to unite, if there is such a thing as a white identity, if you ask most people in this country what's their favourite food, chicken tikka masala, when I leave, I'm taking it with me. And you're welcome, by the way, people. If you do identify as having a white identity that likes chicken tikka masala, thanks, you were welcome. You made it up, but that's okay. In fact, I tell you what, I'll leave it. I'll just take back with me actually authentic Indian food, which some others of you actually really rather like. I just think that this contested notion of white identity, which is not the same as ticking a box saying you identify as white, those are not the same things.
Okay.
It's really problematic. And I think a term like the browning of America, if you don't know where that started, and that started, by the way, with First Nation people, they were there first, but it also continued with slavery. If you're going to talk about the browning of America as a thing that has been done to white America, I do think you have to unpack that a bit more. And I'm not sure you did.
That's a left
If you
wing-
did, I blinked.
I'm going to bring Daniel
It's
back
not a
in.
left-wing thing.
It is
It's
a
just
left-wing
observation.
term.
No, you can say that if you want. It's just an
I'm going to bring
observation.
Daniel
You
because
did
Daniel's
not
been waiting
define
very
any of that.
patiently on the site, and then we'll return.
I am happy to watch.
Still don't know what the browning of America
Okay.
means.
Daniel, so
Maybe Daniel
I
knows.
suppose this isn't really, looking at your book, The Meritocracy Trap. It's not. These conversations aren't really there in the text, but you're more concerned with inequality. You spoke about how 200 years ago everything changed. The argument from the optimists is that our standard of living is getting better and better for everyone. So who cares about inequality if all of our lives are getting better?
I'm happy to say can I weigh in on this?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, come on.
Listen, let's try and move away from.
I know. No, look,
No, Jack.
we've got an issue in which we have real disagreements. So if it's all right, I want
thing.
to. Maybe I can just say two things that put me in an internally conflicted position with respect to this. So first of all.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below.
With a free trial, you can enjoy the full talk and thousands more.
Thank you for being part of the conversation.